This is my spiritual take on where I think cluster B personalities originate from. I repeat, this is my spiritual take. Hopefully this video doesn't get taken down. If you look at all religions, they talk about some form of sin, some form of huge no-no. And in the Bible, there are 7 sins. Albeit all humans are not innocent of, doing some of the little 7 sins here and there. But do you know who is the most hedonistic, the ones that do these sins to the maximum? It's your cluster B personalities. I don't care who says, oh, some of it's nurture. I do not believe that. I believe it is more genetic than we give it credit for. I also believe that there are possessions that occur to possess humans, their vessels, and then make that person into a cluster B person. I've mentioned in a previous video that this comment is linked to, that these are fallen angelic consciousness. Now, the true origins of fallen angels is actually tied to what you call higher dimensional aliens. So at the start of creation, you obviously have God, you have Source. It decided to fractalize itself or split itself and create different primordial gods. And one of the lines, I believe, is the Seraphim line. If you've heard of the Seraphim angels, this is where your fallen angelics kind of broke away from. They defied the natural laws. We don't know how this corruption of the mind started with them. A lot of spiritual people believe that it may have just been a DNA corruption, but they act exactly like what you see on planet Earth when it comes to cluster B personalities like narcs, psychopaths, sociopaths. And one of the Seraphim lines are actually tied to the Dracos. You know, the lizard people? I can't say the full name because I know this video is going to get taken down. They have decided to go against God and God's word and colonize all of these different dimensions, obtain stargates, obtain portals, colonize planets, use the planet's life force for their own selfish gain. Hence the word selfish. They are incredibly selfish, these cluster B personalities. Just like their predecessors, they are operating fully through their reptilian mind. Everything for them is hierarchical, it's survival mechanism, because that's what the fallen angelics had to do. People believe that the fallen angelics come from a lower realm. They do not. That's why they're called fallen. Some of them go as high as the 11th dimension. Now, if you're unaware, the dimensions are actually completely tied in with your DNA. If you have 11 dimensions in your DNA, you can access the 11th dimension. Do you know how powerful these aliens, primordial gods are? So during the colonization phase, where these fallen angelic alien species wanted to take over every freaking planet, they had their eyes specifically on planet Earth. Do you know why? Earth is an anagram for heart. It is the green and blue planet. The heart, or the earth, is supposed to be a garden of Eden. It is supposed to rehabilitate their heart because they have lost their heart. Humanity, we did not used to look like this. We were closer to looking like light beings. We were very, very different from what we are now. We were created in God and the primordial God's image, the non-fallen ones, to help rehabilitate the fallen one's DNA. And you know what they did with us? Their greed still took over. They decided to screw with our DNA, to lessen us, to steal our light codes for their own selfish use, and to enslave humanity. And they have enslaved us in this oligarchical system for a very, very, very long time. Yet, the higher gods and God itself have constantly decided to love and forgive, and to help them seek redemption, because everybody can be redeemed. This is the whole teaching of Jesus Christ, or Yeshua. The Christ consciousness comes from the heart. This is why we say you have no humanity if you have no heart. And truthfully, these cluster B personalities, they have no humanity. This is why I say it is genetic, because how many of us have had rough childhoods? My mom had an extremely rough childhood. I don't even want to talk about what she had to go through. She was born in the 60s. And everybody born in the 60s back in Asia, like China, it was bad. But she still chose to be a good person. Through all of her trials and tribulations, she still chose to be a good person. Now, the same cannot be said about her classmates. They went through the same amount of trauma. Some of them went through less trauma than her, and they chose to be evil. And at some point, you have to ask yourself, is it really a choice or is it genetic? And I'm leaning towards genetic, because if it wasn't, why are there good people being forged out of these trials and tribulations? So this is the spiritual origins of cluster B personalities, and this is just my opinion. I know a lot of spiritual people have the same beliefs as me, but there are others that would find this extremely controversial. This is not to dehumanize anybody, but this is to say that there is still redemption allowed. Because although you cannot change your pathology, you cannot change the fact that you're a narcissist, you can control your actions. You can control how evil you are. Yet, every single day, these fallen angelic ruling people, the ones that are in control, they choose every single day to be pieces of crap. So I say when the revelation comes, when end time comes, whatever you want to call it, they're going to be clutching their pearls because they realize that at some point, even the gods will run out of patience because too many innocent lives have been reincarnated, looped over and over and over again, and this has got to end. If you're curious to learn more about the true origins of humanity, our angelic origins, why these fallen angelics really want our DNA, and why have they done this to us, my book Made in God's Image is linked in my bio. It talks about everything you need to know that I cannot say here on TikTok.